Hello, everybody. All right, I am going to commandeer the meeting now. My dad might use, and so I am now also going to. You can probably all recognize, for obvious reasons, any background noise like dogs and stuff like that.
Any background noise like
can disrupt the Zoom in ways that we wouldn't necessarily choose. So so with apologies to kind of avoid those kind of frustrations, I am going to mute all of you. But this is for sure an occasion where we want this to be participatory, and hopefully everybody who's joined will be able to participate and share something. We're not going to force you, but it would be awesome if you're willing. So stand by as I aggressively mute everyone else's microphone except for my own.
Can you hear?
Oh, so you're gonna have
Her name's Chris Rice. I think she's from Gulf Forest.
All right, that does change the dynamic a bit, and like I said, I don't try to live my life in quite that bossy a way as to prevent anyone else from speaking, but in the context of Zoom, it is occasionally necessary. So hi, welcome to this finale event of our virtual 2020 reunion, everybody. And I hope this is going to be a lot of fun for all of you. That is certainly our intention. My name is Kelly. If you didn't know, I'm the daughter of George and Joan Reamer, who are on with us today, but without a functional microphone. So we'll take whatever the technology is cooperating that we can get. Here is our agenda. I'm going to explain a few things, and while I do that, I'm going to play a slideshow for you, which my brother very kindly prepared for all of us. So hold on one second while I do that, and then I'll explain, like I said, what is prepared for us. Well, I thought I had that window open, and clearly I didn't. All right, so here's what my brother had ready for us. And here's the plan for this afternoon. We're hoping that a bunch of you are willing to share stories and anecdotes, but I'd like to also lower the bar for you all a little bit, because when people talk about, oh, share a story or share an anecdote, it sounds like a little more intimidating than I want it to be. You do not have to have something that's especially poignant or especially funny, or that has a structure, or that has a punchline. It can be anything, any random item, tidbit that you recall from your time in Korea. Do not underestimate how meaningful any small bit of your recollection about Korea will be to all the rest of us, okay? I have 10 surveys prepared. Surveys sounds horribly intimidating, I think, at least in my head. Little bit less intimidating to call them polls, but they are all designed to entertain and amuse you, all right? So we'll activate the first one of those after Mike's slideshow is finished up. And then at the end today, we have one other little surprise to end our time together. And I want to thank Andrea and my brother for helping me with that in advance. Andrea McEachern and my brother, Mike. And I know that Amy already did a bit of this for us, which was to ask you in the chat zone to type where you live. And I know I saw a bunch of that happening before I had joined back in the Zoom right now. But my guess is that some of us live closer to each other than we realized. And that whole small world phenomenon and accidentally bumping into someone, or even realizing like, oh my gosh, you're in a 25-minute drive away from me. Like, we could totally get together sometime if we wanted to. Those are wonderful things to happen for us all. I suspect most of you agree with that. So be sure to type in the chat zone where you live right now: city, state, province, country, whatever is the most logical definition. And then in the spirit of that as well, a few other ways we want to use the chat. One is to go ahead and toss out words, if you like, quick recollections about Korea. If you want to just drop some 1 or 2 word phrases in the chat zone. My guess is those might inspire stories or memories in other people that will make this afternoon even more fun for all of us. After the fact, I will see if I can put together a word cloud to include with this replay, and it might be fun to see that whole assemblage of words. In addition, the chat is your best way to tell me if you have a story or something you're willing to share. Again, this isn't a presentation. This is all of us being together and sharing random thoughts. And so use the chat to bring my attention to the fact that you have something to say or that you're willing to speak up. And if you are also able to let us know something about not just where you live, but maybe what you're up to. And something, let's label it not just what you're up to, but anything meaningful that you'd like to let us know about your current life, or portions of your life that have been between now and whenever you were in Korea. And field's wide open for that, right? Maybe for you, it's something interesting about a job. Maybe it's something about your family. Maybe it's something about your education. Maybe it's something about your other volunteer activities or hobbies. I don't care. My guess is we'll all be happy with whatever you are willing to share with us as far as that goes. So my brother's slideshow has about 1.5 minutes left, which you guys also might be able to see that little counter going. And so I'm gonna toss a couple of random thoughts in just to fill this minute, and to also help you guys know, again, you don't have to share a story or an anecdote. It can just be something. So I will say a couple of memories that came to mind for me this morning as I was getting ready for this event. Boy, I remember Mr. Maddox, who taught me history and anthropology in middle school and high school at Sulphorn School. And he was a phenomenal teacher and sort of set my brain on fire in ways that were new and unique. And my whole life remained super grateful to him and to even my classmates in those particular classes. And as I was thinking about what weekends were like to me and my fond memories of weekends in Korea, let's say especially in high school years, a lot of happy memories for me are going with my mom to the fabric market down near Eastgate, and we would meander down that giant building, those hallways with, how many miles of fabric were in that building, and bargain about the price of the yardage and figure out which outfits we were going to sew. And those were lovely memories. Then also juxtaposed with some other Saturdays when Sarah Doro and I would go on the bus and go down to the antique market zone at Eastgate and meander around. And we were high school kids, so we didn't have a lot of money, but shoot, it was enough to sometimes buy a little vase, some little doodad, some little antique-y thing that even then we knew would be very precious to us later. And so those are some of my personal thoughts. And my guess is that some of you share similar thoughts about that as well. So does anybody, I'm looking now, no slideshow? Did you guys seriously not see the slideshow? Oh, are you kidding? All right, I missed all your comments about that. All right, well, so let's just say the replay will include the slideshow. And we will also have the slideshow playing. I'll put it at the end of this gathering as well. So nice that we have started with complete technological failure here. I'm going to scan on the comments, or you can literally wave at me on the screen. If you have a comment or a story to share, I would love to know who's game to start us off in that way. And if you're not, I'm going to be forced to give you all, okay, here we go. Ben Van Leerup, you are.
Hi, everyone. This is wonderful. Thank you, Kelly and Amy, for setting this up. I didn't realize that I was a third culture child until I was in Japan. As an adult, after so far in school, after college. So that term became familiar to me. But one of the things that I remember that some of my friends have told me is that when I first arrived at college, I was bowing to everybody. I had no idea I was doing that. And so that came, of course, from growing up in a culture where bowing was quite, the way to meet people. And of course, I later learned other things about myself. But Korea has meant a lot to me over the years. I hope I'm connecting with others. And it actually has ended up that I lived in Japan, and so I had two countries. And someone told my parents, one of my parents' colleagues at Yonsei University said to me, Dr. Han Tae-dong said, Ben, if you want to know about one country, live in another Asian country, and you'll know both very well. So, but the thing I want to mention is that Korea has always been a place, have always had a place in my heart, and it has helped me to be a bridge between cultures, and that's been something I've carried with me for my life. And I finally ended up, I just retired about 2 years ago, and I served as a director of the Japan America Society in Minnesota. And so that I came full circle, I think, using my background relating to both Korea and Japan. And what I'm doing, this is a little plug for a hobby of mine, but I'm planning a tour to both Korea and Japan, an arts and culture tour. Starts in Seoul and then goes to Gyeongju, and takes a ferry across to Japan and spends 8 days in Japan as well. So if you're interested, give me a holler. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. So Lois Sauer just asked a question, and I am going to scan back up in the comments now because I know I already have more volunteers too to share things. But Lois Sauer just asked a question. How many went to the sunrise services for Easter? She remembers both the ones on Namsan and Yoido. Raise your hand if that applies to you, that you went to that. Anybody? I don't think I ever did, but all right. Now, I am going to do our first poll, which I do trust you guys are all going to enjoy this. Here is poll 1. Okay, can you guys see the poll? And it should be a yes or no question. Thumbs up if you're seeing the poll. Amy, you seeing the poll? Okay, great. All right. So keep, I think as soon as you click your answer, then it should disappear from your view, and I will wait until it looks like no one else is making up their mind about which choice is accurate for them. But I know that yesterday in our gathering and discussion with Liz that Judy Steele had a comment she was going to make, which I did not see in the chat. So I'm going to ask Judy, and I'm going to go find her to unmute her. So I'm going to let her tell her story. I think it has something to do with driving. And while she tells that story, I will also be looking for other people who are willing volunteers. And be advised, if you asked a question, said you're willing to share something, and then it takes me forever to call on you, I might have missed your offer in the chat. So don't be afraid to put it in again. That'll be helpful to me, okay? If it seems like I am just oblivious and it skipped you unnecessarily. All right, Judy, I think you're unmuted.
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How many of you all drove in Korea?
I did.
I did. And when you go to one of the rotaries or whatever, 3 lanes would turn into 5. And then it would be a race to get out of there to go somewhere else. So I was learning travel when I came back to the States, learning to drive a bus, a school bus. And I was lucky because of my experience in Korea. I was the only one that they trained that didn't have to pull forward and back between these 2 trees without pulling forward. So that was an experience, and I remember going down the road here in the States and going between 2 cars and never slowing down and wondering looking at my rearview mirror and go, how in the world did I do that? So it was interesting to some of the things that carry over, at least for a little while. And I was only in Korea for 3 years, taught at Seoul in school. So that was interesting that you have that experience, and it stays with you for so long after you return to the United States. That's my story for now.
Thank you, Judy. If you can mute yourself, go ahead and do that again. And you guys can see the poll results. So apparently there are proportionally less shell collectors than I expected. I was honestly assuming about 95% of us would remember these shell names, but only 70% of us learned shell names that stuck with us for our entire lives, apparently. Only 70%. So, all right, it sounds like we have another offer to speak from, hold on, this is clearly not going to be as seamless as I would like it to be. Evelyn McMullen, I'm finding you to unmute you, hold on. All right, there you are. Okay, Evelyn's got a story about her mom.
Okay, my mother, everybody knew her as Aunt Coffee Worth. When she had the privilege of living in an intergenerational Christian community that helped settle refugees after my father died. So one of the things they did was they told their faith journey. So that's a gift that my mother had, of being able to tell her faith journey at least 4 times a year to the new volunteers that were coming in. And one of the stories that I heard, I'd never heard this from her in Korea, but one of the stories that I heard from those people in the Jubilee community was when she and my father first arrived in Korea. That would have been in 1954. And they drove from whatever airport was being used to the Presbyterian compound in Seoul. And as they drove, they just saw the devastation of the war all around them, and how their hearts just broke for the suffering of the people. But as they drove into the compound, there was the church right near the gate there, and it had suffered damage as well. But as they stopped and heard the hymn being sung, was "This is my Father's world," and they recognized the tune, of course. And my mother's mind, even though she couldn't understand the Korean, her mind jumped to the verse which says, "This is my Father's world, oh let me ne'er forget, that though the wrong seems oft so strong, God is the ruler yet." And that's been just a powerful memory for us. And she lived to be 100 years old, had a great birthday last fall. Some of you all sent cards and notes, and she appreciated that. And then she passed away just as all this craziness was starting. So I'm thankful she didn't have to live through social isolation, because that would have not have been good for Coffee Work.
Thank you for sharing that. And thanks also for giving me a really logical context in which to mention that usually when we have these Korea reunions every 3 years, we do take a time to acknowledge those who've passed on. And when we planned our virtual components, we weren't trying to do a complete full replacement of the reunion. And so when that idea was mentioned, it would have been lovely to do, but I have no comprehensive sort of recall, or we weren't organized enough to kind of properly research who ought to be remembered. So next year, when we're in person at the reunion, that will be, I'm sure, a part of the events. And I'm sure it's great to have fond memories then of your mom making it to 100. And yes, she exited this world maybe at a very opportune time. Right? All right, so William Brown, I'm looking for you because you have something to share from yesterday. And so let's see if I can get you unmuted. and if your microphone will work for us. Hold on. I'm still looking, and William, looks like I'm
Okay,
hitting the, oh, we hear you, yay.
now it's working, finally. Sorry for yesterday, yeah. Evelyn, thanks for sharing that. My mother knew your mother real well, and she passed away last year also. I think mother was, that's Martia Hopper Brown. She was 97 or 98, so lived a good long life. And Ben, thanks for your comment on bowing. It's apropos because I play a lot of tennis. Faith Dietrich, who's on the thing here somewhere, her mother taught me how to play tennis in Gwangju way back in the 1950s, 60s. And I played at Tachun Beach. I usually got beat by Sam Moffat, if you remember him. I think I could beat him now, though, because I'm playing a lot. Yesterday, we played, in this hot sun here in Washington. It's about 100, almost 100 degrees. And, when you play tennis, people you haven't played with usually shake hands, but we can't do that. So I've taught people around here to, instead of shaking hands, to do a bow. And I learned that in Korea a few years ago. I was in Gwangju, actually, and I was playing tennis with the seminary people. And it's sort of stunning at first because you go up to play your doubles and your opponent bows to you. And it's just not, it just very, and then tries to ace you the next move. So it's a very funny way to play tennis. But now the people in Washington are all starting to bow instead of shaking hands. I wanted, though, to mention yesterday, because I thought the conversation was really very interesting. What I wanted to say, though, was I think with my background's a little bit, or maybe we all have different backgrounds, of course. We have a similarity in common denominator in Korea, but our backgrounds are all hugely different. And I must admit, I haven't come across this, for me or people in my family, this problem of transition between America and Korea. And I think looking back at it, and I'm writing some material on it, my parents were both missionary kids themselves. My mother was born in Korea and my dad was born in China. And we went to Korea, Gwangju, in 1954. I grew up there 20 years or so. But my parents were, being missionary kids themselves, really tried to impress upon us that we were not missionaries. We were missionary children, as they had been. And they mentioned many times that they had not been called to be missionary children. Their parents made them missionary children. And but then later they had been called to be missionaries, and I think they wanted us to also get that call. But they were insistent on the idea that we were not, the children were not missionaries, and that we should be brought up to find our way in American culture as best as possible, as easy as possible. So the downside of that is I never learned Korean very well. Faith might have in Korea, but I think most of us in my family, we didn't learn Korean that well. We lived there, but we didn't go to Korean school. We had our own little school, and then we went to KCA for high school. And that's another difference, I think. Most of the people in my family and people I knew went to KCA, went to boarding school in high school. So when I went to college, the huge transition going to college is living away from home. Well, I already had that. I thought I had much fewer problems than all my other friends who were trying to learn to live away from home. And then I quickly met up with Chinese Americans and Korean Americans. Throughout my whole life now, I've been working on Korea and with Chinese and Koreans all the time. So I've never really felt this great divide that some of y'all may have felt. Anyway, I just thought I would mention that.
Yeah, thank you. That's very interesting. I mean, it sounds like you had some segues, right, in terms of even initially the worldview and expressed by your parents, so your own understanding of your context, and then the segue experience in terms of living at boarding school, which I would think most people, I mean, certainly that's a hardship in lots of ways, but let you...
No, it wasn't. It was a wonderful experience in high school. So
yeah.
I have, I'm not saying that, other people don't have different kind of problems. It's just that everybody is special in their own way, I guess, way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as you said, common aspects of it, and then also lots of variations on the theme. Sue Pock has a story about language, and Sue, as soon as I see that your little red slash has gone away, we're gonna listen to what you got to share. Hold on. Whoops. Do you see a little request coming your way, Sue? Ask to unmute. I'm trying to click it. We'll see if it cooperates.
Am I on?
You are.
This is a short story. I was in Korea and I did drive at that time, and I went out the door and was heading somewhere. I don't know where. And then when I got back, I couldn't remember the name of where I was supposed to be going to because I hadn't been there very long. So this police officer, I stopped to the side and he came, you know, he's all in Korean. He says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I need to go to a Mogyok-tam." I said something about Mogyok, and he says, "Do you want to take a bath?" I said, No. And I said, "List all the universities. I think I need to go to college." So he listed all the universities, and finally he got to Mobon, and I said, "Yes, that's where I'm going." He directed me, and it's a miracle I got back, but I did. But I mean, that's so crazy. He really thought I was going to have to take a bath. That's it. Short, sweet.
Well, while I am searching for Paul Kim to share something, I'm going to tell you guys a quick language story that I recall. And I would share regret about not, at this point in my life, being fluent in Korean. That's something I didn't quite see coming in the way that it ended up happening. And boy, it is something that I would wish to slightly alter in the sequence of things in my life. But I remember being on furlough, or on our way to a furlough, on the way to the States. And we stopped in Anchorage, Alaska. My dad had a classmate there who was a pastor, and so we stopped in Anchorage. I specifically know that I overslept so horribly with jet lag that I was like 3 hours late, never made it to the church service. I don't know how my dad, and I'm sure many of you adults, did miraculous things in terms of traveling and instantly being on for church services. So as an adult now, I don't know how you had that kind of stamina. But we went to a Korean restaurant with this family that we were visiting, and the waitress, of course, my dad was speaking with, and then she told us, and I must have been about 10 years old at the time, she said she had only been living in Alaska for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, something like that. And she told my dad, who was translating this conversation to everybody, that she wasn't fluent in English yet, but that she was also aware she was forgetting her Korean. And I was blown away by that sudden awareness of how intangible and impermanent language is. And the idea of being in this weird realm of semi-fluent and not sort of completely fluent in any language at all. I have never forgotten that moment as a child, looking at this woman thinking like, wow, that is a crazy complicated place to be in your life. And it's always made me have a lot of empathy and respect for people who are multilingual more than I, and empathy for the complexities, right, of moving from one place and where the particular language is dominant to another. Paul, you are unmuted, so love to hear what you got. Uh-oh, you are unmuted, except we can't hear you. Let's see, Paul. Any buttons looking like you can click them to solve that problem? Paul, we cannot, hold on. Not hearing you, Paul.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Okay, great, wonderful. 반갑습니다. Yeah. All right. First of all, I want to thank you, Kelly, and what you are presiding over, and also Judy, and how organized all these things. And I was looking forward from even 3 years ago that I want to be part of it, to go to this time, but because of the coronavirus, we could not make it. But I wanted, so glad to hear from my old friend, Bill Brown. He just spoken, and we were school at the time at KCA. I was a second student, Korean student, went to the KCA 65 and 66 before coming to the United States. So my experience at KCA was 1 year was the most profound and most encouraging, most challenging. First time I could understand the Christian missionaries. There was the MKs, we were school together, like a family member. I still have a fond, memory about the teachers and the students, and I still keep in touch with some of those people. Well, one experience that I had, I went there to prepare to come to the United States, but I did not speak, English at all. But I learned a lot about the American spirit, the missionary, the kindness, and really humility. That was very encouraging to understand what are the Christians, and that really helped me a lot. And now it's been at 53 years as I passed, and now I've been here in the United States for 53 years, and now I retired the Southern Baptist pastor, and I've been with my church for almost 39 years now. And so it's been so wonderful, and I'm so glad that you love the Korea, you love our people. You continue. Whenever I hear the word Korea, my heart is say, wow, that's just so wonderful to hear the name. Somebody loved the Korean. But currently, I'm at the National Chaplain of a Korea War Veterans Association nationwide. So I still keep in touch with those the troops, soldiers. When they were young, they were called to the Korea fighting Korean War for freedom. And now I'm at the National Chaplain of that organization. So really encouraged me to see for you folks who was a missionary to Korea. And now I've seen that those veterans who served in Korea during the war for help to build up the Korea as it is. I hear a lot of a story, how they really served and that there was a devastated nothing in that time. Now they have a chance to go back to Korea. They're just overwhelming. How nothing was in Korea. Now that the place is such the change that they're encouraged it because their sacrifice was not vain. Because of their, the dedication, and they have so much that Korea was to be changed. It, so they're so grateful. So I want to thank for the both of you folks who served the Korea build up, churches and the Christian schools and many things impact the lives of people generations to come. So likewise, for those the veterans who served the Korean War, and for those 3 years, they have changed the Korea for as it is today. So we never forget how grateful we are that God called us for to serve, to love a different capacity. But we are so grateful. I want to we continue that God calls us in glory, that we keep be faithful to God. I still miss you guys. I hope that next year we can get back to North Carolina. All right, great. I was there 3 years ago, so I met some of you folks. Thank you.
Oops, all right, that will teach me not to turn my microphone off. I am now trying to figure out how to, okay, here we go, poll 2. We have multiple polls, and if I don't start doing these more quickly, we're not gonna see them all. So here is poll 2, which I hope will amuse you all. And again, I have my own theories about what kind of results we're going to see from these questions. And Judy Steele, while this poll is going, I'm gonna unmute you, Judy, because Judy's got a question, has a story, it sounds like, about language also. All right.
Am
Judy.
I on?
Can you, let's see, let's try that. Say something again, Judy.
Am I on?
Yes. Talk a little quietly so that we don't get the crazy feedback. Let's try that.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
The first Christmas I was in Korea, the 5 single ladies from Team Mission went to Jeju for Christmas. The first night we ate at this restaurant, I told the waiter that was waiting on us that the food was great. I told him in Korean. Well, he kept treating me the whole rest of the time I was there like I was a queen. And so I couldn't figure that out. Well, the missionaries, the ones that had been there for a while, told me that I told him he was handsome instead of telling him the food was good. So that's my story for language. I'm done.
Awesome, thanks, Judy. All right, so there was the second poll, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and launch poll 3 right now as I search for the microphone for Thomas Harmon, because he has a story also. So everybody vote on poll 3 while I'm finding Thomas. Hold on one second. We have about 60 people on this call, so there's a lot of faces to toggle through here, which I'm not complaining about at all. It's wonderful that so many of you showed up. All right, as soon as the little red slash is gone from your icon, Thomas, we'll be happy to hear you share what you've got to say. Hold on one sec. Let's see if your microphone will unmute itself. Hang on. Oh, hold on, Thomas. I'm clicking the button. So if you're seeing something to say, like, do you want your microphone to be unmuted, say yes to that. I'm hitting the ask to unmute button. Meanwhile, we've got 85% of our attendees have voted on the poll. All right. I'm going to close that poll in just a moment. All right, Thomas, if you want to figure out, yeah, keep trying to figure out your microphone issue. I think but I'll end this poll right now. And all right, and then I guess I'm going to ask some trigger questions here. Feel free, like I said, any stories, oh, okay, great, Thomas. It looks like we think we will be able to.
On there?
Yeah,
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay. I have a lady here who used to teach at Seoul Foreign School. We got married 54 years ago at Seoul Union Church. And we now have, she was known then as Lois Suttie, S-U-T-T-I-E. Anybody know her?
Yes,
Yeah,
Margaret Chung,
yeah,
I know trying to cry.
Yeah. Okay. She now is the grandmother of 9 grandchildren. And one of our great grandsons is getting married next week, and we can't go to the wedding.
Because of COVID.
Because we're in a high risk group. That's all right now.
Well, so sorry about having to miss the wedding. And yes, peek in that screen, because I know Margaret had told me by email she really wanted to get in touch with you. And so a reminder to all of you, go ahead and use the chat to communicate with each other. You probably know this already, but you can, the little blue box when it says to, you can use that drop-down menu and you can direct a message privately to just one person. So trade email addresses, trade mailing addresses, phone numbers, whatever you guys want. Keep in touch with each other, right? We matter to each other, and there's no reason not to connect even better, even more than we already are. I'm gonna share the results of our poll. And so it sounds like only 27% of us have used this strategy on the phone. 24% of you have not, but a whole bunch of you think it sounds like a good idea. So I recommend it to all of you. It is a very convenient way to confuse people with whom you do not necessarily want to speak. Alrighty, so let's ask. Okay. Tracy Wise has just told me that private messaging apparently isn't possible in the chat. I'm so sorry. That must be a setting that I meant to have one way, and I set the opposite way. And I don't think that I can switch it during the meeting. I will try. But your other alternatives, certainly make sure that your email list is in the email list that we have on the Korea Reunion website, because at the very least, if you're there, there will be ways that the admins who have access to that email list can potentially move information from one person to the next who asks for it, right? So just be advised that is possible. Okay, so people, let me just ask this question this way. Who are people that you especially remember for any particular reason? I shared Mr. Maddox as one of mine. Anybody else want to jump in and take a moment to especially call out some folks who you especially remember from your time in Korea? That is one question that I can suggest you volunteer to answer for all of us to hear. Another question is places, specific places in Korea that might have a great memory attached for you. I mentioned the fabric market and Eastgate Market, the antique market at Eastgate Market. It's probably a universal answer of Tachon Beach for all of us. Another question that I'm hoping will inspire some anecdotes or offers to share is moments that you remember, and maybe why a moment was significant for you. I guess I shared my story about meeting that waitress at the Korean restaurant in Anchorage, Alaska. That certainly, altered my understanding of the world in all kinds of ways. And maybe you guys can think of some moments like that that would be interesting for all of the rest of us to hear. And another question is impact. Are there things in your experience, in your memories of Korea that you know that you can really clearly identify it as having had a significant impact on your life? And I guess I'll toss one into that list while I'm waiting for others to volunteer to share. And that would be all of the plays at SFS, right? Participating on stage at Seoul Foreign School was an incredible life-changing experience for me. I was actually super lucky because when I was in first grade, there was a particular short, I think it was a set of a couple of short plays, and one of them was called The Patchwork Quilt. And that particular play included the role of a little girl. And so darned if I didn't get to be the little girl in the high school play. And if I was 7 years old, probably in that territory, that flavored the rest of my life. And that theme of loving to perform, having the experience of being an actress on stage was an amazing, enriching experience for me. And I know for a whole bunch of you, because some of you participated in drama at Seoul Foreign together with me on Rob's stage, as it was called, in that old version of the stage in our old building. All right, I need to see somebody waving at me or volunteering to share something. And while you're thinking about it, I'm going to launch another poll. Oh, okay, Martha raised her hand, so I'm going to, before Martha shares with us, here is another poll while I search for Martha's microphone. All right, so this one's about grocery stores. Okay, so answer your poll question right now, and as you're answering, Martha, you will be able to speak right now.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. You were talking. I'm afraid my sister's. My sister and I are both on our laptops, and so you're hearing her. But anyway, I have to admit, acting was one thing that surprised me, that I really enjoyed, that helped me at Seoul Foreign School. I think I started acting in middle school when they had plays, and then we had West Side Story. We did, I don't know if anyone remembers that, but I was able to paint the backdrop for that. And so my involvement in the play was fun for me. It helped me start realizing who I was and some of my abilities. And then being in the States when I was a junior, I went ahead and auditioned for a part in the play, and this is a huge school outside of Washington, D.C. So I didn't think I would have a chance, but I went ahead, because I had gotten confidence from Seoul Foreign School, I went ahead and auditioned, and I got a part, not a huge part, but I had a part and I had a chance to sing. So I am thankful that of my opportunity at Sophron School to help me come out of myself and find out what I was good at.
Yeah, because the small classes were very beneficial.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so it sounds like, Leah, I'm going to share results with this poll, and boy, 84% of us have actually thought of a food item or an item in the grocery store, thought of the Korean word for it before the English word for it, 84%. And so I'm going to launch the next poll here as I also find the microphone for Leah Meek, who is one of those people who I have very much enjoyed knowing and working with in all kinds of different ways during our school years, and still keeping a little bit in touch with in the subsequent time of this last few decades. So everybody work on answering that poll, and Leah, I have clicked the button to unmute you.
Actually, I waved at you because the chat box had been disabled. I think it's up and working again now. But talking about plays, not only at SFS, but also down at the beach. And I talked with my husband this a lot of times. You know, we had 2 weeks to put together a full musical at Tetchon Beach. You know, if you had a bigger part, you were pre-cast. If you didn't, you just showed up and got cast in the chorus when you got there and hoped that you know, if you were going to be there the weekend of the play. So those were always, those were some pretty fun times to participate in those as well.
Awesome. And I think most people, we probably all agree that most people we know would have absolutely no comprehension of how tremendous and professional those productions were. Seriously, that is an amazing thing from my recollection. And yeah, I was always very respectful of those people. And I never participated in the plays at Tetchon, but that might have been because I was greedy for more swimming time. So, so we all enjoyed watching though. All right, so almost nobody has not dreamed that you were back in Korea. That is also not a tremendous surprise. Okay, we have volunteers, and so I know that, okay, Lee Ellen Strawn, I am going to find you, and I know I've got a backlog of like 3 other people who are willing to tell us something, so hold on. All right, let's just keep doing it this way. I'm gonna share another poll because I can do that while I search for the microphone. All right, this one is about pop. Everybody answer that poll. And Lee Ellen, as soon as you see that little red slash disappear, you will be good to talk. Okay.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, I just want to say I'm really excited to be here. And today I opened my email at 3:38 p.m. and there was a message from my sister Sarah, who's also on this Zoom meeting, and it was from Mrs. Barbara Pock. She was forwarding information about today's Zoom meeting with the link. And, you know, I thought to myself really quickly, I thought, gosh, I don't know, I probably won't recognize a lot of folks and they probably won't know me. But that was just a split-second hesitation. And I knew I wanted to participate. And it's because I feel like I am at an extended family reunion. And even though you might not recognize me or my name, or I might not have had the privilege to meet all of you, I feel like I belong. So I just really wanted to say that and wanted to say thank you to the organizers. And so Kelly, I'm sort of answering many of your questions all at once, wrapped into one, to say, you know, the impact of Korea and my time there is really to have the experience of being able to belong to a community that is certainly not limited by time and space. So that's a wonderful gift, and I wanted to share that.
Awesome, thank you. All right, poll results coming in right now, and take a peek at that. Apparently 91% of us have had a craving for Korean rice. So that is a relatively significant statistic, I would say. All right, so I'm gonna start another poll, poll 7, and then I have 10 total. So here is one more for you guys. And John Tice, I'm gonna find your microphone because you got something to share with all of us too. So everybody vote about the great debate of tubu versus tofu. All right, John, I'm doing the little request for you to be unmuted. You're good to go.
Okay. Can you all hear me? I guess. All right. Well, I was just going to respond to who you remembered, and for all of us that went to Seoul Foreign School, I'm sure we remember Heidi Ham. I didn't much like her in high school because when I thought I would slide by and take Korean 1 and 2, get some easy A's under my belt, she decided to put me in Korean 4, and I was the only student in the class. And it really irritated me because there was no sliding by with her when you're the only person in the class. So I thought I'd share that. And I sort of think, you know, because Seoul Foreign School was a small school and everybody knew each other and the community was small, it was hard for kids to pull things over on adults. And sometimes when we look at the problems in American education, I wonder how things would be different if we had small schools, 300, 400, 500 students. So anyway, that's my little contribution. Thanks.
Thank you. And I will say I was in Korean class with your brother, Matt, and you guys spoke Korean a lot. And I know poor Matt, he spoke very conversational Korean, and that was an issue because the formality of class with Mrs. Ham was she wanted us to learn all the proper form, right? So yes, I was envious of his linguistic abilities, and I did not envy the fact that he caught a little flack for what he had learned and the way he had learned it, right? So, and you guys see that, all right, this is a little bit less dramatic a split than the previous question, that apparently the tubu preference in terms of the language label is not all that extreme. But a bunch of you tilt the way I do. And Leah also added that she doesn't like tubu or tofu, so she really doesn't care too much about the name that we use for it. All right, so we have Brenda Sansom has something to tell us. And Brenda, how convenient of you to be right where my cursor was. You'll be unmuted any moment now, I think. You're good to go, Brenda.
Great. Kelly, I don't know if you remember this, but I was the director of the Patchwork Quilt. And I was the casting director too. Do you remember the what do you call it? The tryouts. Yeah, it was you and oh, I can't remember, Lydia Colson, I think.
Yes, Lydia's my
And yeah, it was a great fun doing that. That was one of the, I was in Mrs. Erickson's drama class. And all of us, we had to either direct or perform in a one-act play. So that was the play. I don't remember how I chose it, but it turned out to be really great. And your performance was great. Yeah, I also want to just remember, you know, like Marty was talking about, the gift that the drama at Seoul Foreign School was. I don't know if you guys remember Rowena Robb. She had us all doing Shakespeare, which, you know, is kind of amazing for our little school. I was in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and we even got a review in the Korea Times. So it was important, not just for those of us who were in it and our families, but it was sort of a community event, and was just, yeah, one of the most fun times I remember in Korea.
Wow. Thanks for sharing, Brenda. That's amazing. You've added even to the significance of that memory for me. And yeah, I saw lots of people nodding about how amazing it was. And Mrs. Robb was a tremendous person. Wow. I think probably even we kids, as we were kids, knew that. But I think my my comprehension of that has only expanded in years since. So. All right, I have lost track of whether I have more volunteers to share stories or not. So chime in here in the chat box if you've got something to share. And if okay, Philip Harkins says he does. So Philip, I'm gonna, and we've got actually someone just landing to join us in our gathering right now, which happened yesterday as well, just as we were closing up. We had someone else come. So, let me launch another poll. Also, before we ask this, okay, we've got 3 left. This is almost the next to last poll. This one is about flags and signs. And Philip, I am on my way to your microphone. So let's see when we can get that red slash to go away. All right, Philip, you may speak as other people vote.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly, very much for organizing this. This is fantastic. The moment that stands out to my mind the most is graduation from high school, because even though it was a small school, small KCA, only 10 students in the class, we just knew that we would never be together again, and that Korea would not be my home again. It had been since birth. So I was leaving something that I knew for something that I didn't know, and that was pretty stressful for me. So just that moment in time of having to say goodbye to so many friends that I knew would be cast all over the world. And do I dream about being at KCA? Yes, last night I dreamt about being back at KCA. So yes, I still dream of that wonderful home. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. All right, well, dramatic, this can't be beat, this result. So 100% of us have actually been excited to see a Korean flag somewhere, or Hangul on a sign somewhere that we didn't expect it, apparently. So too funny. Okay, so it looks like I've got a few more volunteers. Hold on. The first volunteer I'm gonna call on is, as I launch another poll, our 9th of 10. Here comes your 9th of 10 polls. And I'm going for Marilyn Stokes next. And I still have other people whose names I have not missed yet, but I'm going to look for Marilyn right now. Hold on, Marilyn. Okay, you should see a little thing to ask to turn your microphone on. Did that show up? Click it again. Let's see what happens here if we can get Marilyn. Okay, Marilyn, you should be able to speak.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfect.
Good. I wanted to talk about Korean food. When we first came home and I cooked rice, my son complained about the rice. He said, "Mom, have you forgotten how to cook rice?" I said, "Well, this is American rice." "Well, why do we have to eat American rice? Why can't we have Korean rice?" After that, we've eaten Korean rice the whole time. The first time we bought 20 pounds, and my mother, who was living with us at the time, said, "How will we ever eat 20 pounds of rice?" But it didn't take long at all. And then when Kia opened up in West Point, before they started the plant, or when they first started it, first thing that came was Korean restaurants. And I went to one that I knew was owned by a Korean, and they hadn't been marked as a Korean restaurant yet. And I went in to ask if they served Korean food. He says, "Well, no, we don't, but I have a Korean restaurant in Montgomery. If you want something, I will bring it to you." And he brought me a full meal of Korean food from Montgomery, where he had a restaurant. And since then, I've gone to that Korean restaurant a lot. But we still like Korean food, and we still enjoy it often. And that's the best thing about Korea, about Kia being in West Point, is that we get Korean food often. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so there's the results of this poll. Apparently all of us have had this kind of a moment, almost all of us as well. 98% of us have been secretly happy when we spotted somebody who we knew was Korean. However, we figured that out. That brought us a little moment of joy, apparently. So, all right, Sue Pak wants to share something else, I think, chiming in with the comments about drama and KCA. So Sue, I'm looking for you. Hold on. Oh goodness. All right. Well, because that's super frustrating for all of you, let me launch another poll while let me search for the next person. So we're going to go to poll 9. Oops. Sorry. Poll 10 actually. So this is our final poll. All right. There you go. Feel free to vote while I search for Supak. And then we have a few more people still interested in speaking too. All right, Sue, share what you would like.
Actually, all I wanted to do was just put in a plug for KCA and TCIS that it has great plays too. That's all I wanted to say. I didn't have anything in particular. All my children were involved in the plays though, and it was a wonderful experience.
Gotcha. Yep, thanks, Sue. Yep, I never saw any performances at KCA, but I certainly think that there's lots of kindred spirits who attended that school, right? All right, I'm ending our final poll, and 91% of you have voted. Last chance to click whichever button you want to click. And 92, 94%. All right, I don't know how close to 100% we can get with this voting, but my brother is going to share a story or memory or insight, and I ought to be able to find my brother quickly because I know him rather well. Mike, you should be almost unmuted right now. Go ahead.
So among the countless memories, right? Literally countless memories, high school sports offered some just incredible moments. You know, when you think back to, we can say it was a different time, but I might argue it was a different place. And the fact that, you know, we traveled in buses around Korea to play against our very limited selection of opponents, sleeping on gym floors and whatnot. I would argue with very little chaperones personship, but frankly trusted to be able to handle those experiences. And I graduated SFS in '84, played basketball in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And I will argue that we were a pretty good team, but we were cursed by the powerhouse team that dominated basketball from Seoul Foreign for 2 years, never losing a game, just a handful of years before us. And I say cursed in a lighthearted way. Trust me, I'm not really upset at them, but it was always our goal, you know. And some of my teammates were David Starnes, David Sohn, Joel Hudson, played against Philip Harkins, who's on here and spoke a minute ago. And we always wanted to try to match what that one team from SFS had done, and it was impossible. That said, in my basketball career, I'll say I was a solid player, and I had a weakness in that I always felt the other guys on the court were better than me, my other four teammates. So I always never wanted to take the shot. I always felt like I was better off passing the ball. In fact, I'd sometimes get yelled at by the coach to actually shoot the ball, which leads to the point of this hopefully humorous story, is that my best game ever was down at KCA. And I can remember I scored 16 points, had a bunch of rebounds, played pretty well. And I scored 16 points because I was taking shots and going to the hoop. And the reason I was being exceptionally aggressive on the court that day was that I was trying to impress a girl at KCA who will remain anonymous. But that was the motivation that game. Didn't have anything to do with what the coach was telling me to do. It had to do with the fact that I knew that girl was there and I was trying to impress her. And that's the end of my story.
Too funny, Mike. All right, Philip Harkins, he really wants to know the name of that girl. Oh, all right. And the poll results from our final poll. Here you go. 96% of us are Korean paintings and chests are some of our most treasured possessions. And again, that's not a terribly surprising result, right? All right, well, this is your last chance. Anybody else, if you want to tell anything else, share anything else, quick, put something in the chat box. And if I don't see anything else pop in, then I am going to say that we're going to move into our end of this event with 3 components to it. All right. So, okay, William Brown has one more thought. Hold on, William. I'm looking for you. I'm going to stop sharing that poll as soon as I find you with your microphone. All right, William, hold on. I'm searching for you. Okay, that little request should have come your way, the ask to unmute button. Okay, William, yes.
Yeah, just again, referring to yesterday, someone, I've forgotten her name, said she was getting ready to go to Korea, I think this week, right? For the first time in a long time. One thing I think to watch out for when you do that is when you go to a place like Korea, you haven't been there a long time, you associate places, of course, that's where you're going, but you're really thinking of the people that were there. So when you go to a place, you know, after a long time, I'd love to go to Korea. I go there quite a lot. I go maybe every 2 or 3 years, and I go down to Gwangju and look around. Since my mother died, I'm almost not wanting to go because it's the people that really make the difference. So I think it's great to go to Korea, but just keep that in mind. It's nothing different about Korea than any place else. The funny thing is I go to my house in Korea a lot more often than I go to my house in Arlington, where we lived here for 15, 20 years. It's just about 5 miles away. I never go there, but I like to go to the house in Gwangju. But it's really all about the people that you lived with and not so much the place.
Thanks for sharing that, William. Yeah, there's a lot of complexity right there. It's place, it's people, it's time, all kinds of variables all connected together. And it's a good warning. There's that saying, you can never go home. And I think that's part of what it's about, right? Is that you can never exactly replicate or recreate some experience exactly again, but you certainly can appreciate them and then be ready with a different kind of maturity as a different person now to value it and in new ways, right? I am going to take the liberty, like I said, of ending this with 3 particular components. So if you will be so kind as to join me in prayer, I'm just gonna give us a little prayer, and then I'm gonna play a surprise for you. And when that's done, one more piece of music, then I will play back the slideshow, which we attempted to play back at the beginning of this gathering. And feel free while the slideshow is going, I'll mute my microphone. Feel free again to use the chat while the Zoom meeting is still happening to communicate with each other, you know, set up ways that you can keep in touch with each other before the next reunion in a year. So if you'll close your eyes and pray with me. Loving God, thank you so much for all these people. Thank you for giving us such interesting lives where we've been able to have rich experiences in more than one culture, more than one side of the globe, and help us to appreciate those, to recognize all the blessings attached to that, all the advantages that has given us in our lives, and help us to be honest with ourselves and with other people about when and how the richness of that is sometimes a source of struggle or growth or pain. But be with us in our lives wherever we are at this point in time. Watch over us as we travel from place to place, from country to country, and interact with people who share our connections to other parts of the world or who don't. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. I am going to share screen again with this one little component that I will play back for all of you. And I want to thank Andrew McEachern and my brother for helping me with this. And I will watch the chat so that if I fumble this technological move, I will not be completely oblivious to that fact as I was earlier today. So this will play, and when it's done, I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna play my brother's slideshow again. And I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of the weekend, and maybe that we can see in person in a year. Oops, hold on. I know you're not gonna hear that sound, are you? Let me stop share because I forgot to hit the critical button, which is the make sure the sound is included. Here we go. Again, thanks to Andrea and my brother.
The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. 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 The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Lord, turn his face toward you and give you peace.
And here we go to the slideshow. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. Take care of yourselves. See you next year, all right?